the normalized data. This is one of the most asked questions. What is this meant for? Well, about 8 months ago, I created the very first dashboard. It is going to look again. If the letter is M, if it is M, it will remove the M and then multiply that number by 1,000,000. Remember the very first sheet we created, the news page. This is where it comes to play. Okay, so in the last 2 videos, we discussed about the news page where we talked about the different types of news, the impact ranking of a news, the situation of sentiment that comes through when a news is, the actual is better than the forecast, or the actual is okay or, less than the forecast. Then we talked about coincidence, lagging, and leading. If you do not know any of this, I'll put the link to the first video up in this place somewhere so you can go watch. Also, we have the type rank, and then finally we have the indicator rank, which is the actual impact rank multiplied by the type rank to give you an indicator rank. Then in the last video, we discussed about the data cleanup. This is how you clean up the data you get from investing.com and make it collectible and proper and easily adjustable and calculatable for Excel. In this video, we will be talking about the news data input page. This page is all about the calculation. Matter of fact, this is the second most important page in the entire sheet. The first most important page is the news page, because a lot of the things coming here will be coming because of the very first page. Okay, so what you can see here is a very simple page, and trust me, this page is absolutely easy and simple. Now, all you need to do here is, just like the first page we had, you simply copy all of this, right? You copy all of this and you put it in a new sheet. You will paste normally like this or paste as value, whichever one is fine. But you just need to make sure that this first line is converted to date. It could be short, long date, whichever one is fine. And you convert every other thing here. Make sure that they are regarded as numbers. But you don't really need to bother yourself about these ones. They could be general, it doesn't matter. But your key things, remember, is that this is seen as date by the Excel workbook. Now, why are we not using Google Sheets? Well, Google Sheets is very good, absolutely really good. The only problem is that the formulas work totally different in Google Sheets. Google Sheets has a different way of working the formulas we're going to use here. The formulas we use here are very shortened and easy to understand. But on Google Sheets, you actually need like nesting of formulas. In case you don't know what that means, you can just Google it up. Nesting of formulas. You need to nest a lot of formulas together to get the same situation as you can get with just like 1 or 2 formula names, and you get an answer. Now on this page, one thing you're going to realize is this. The very first thing is you cannot calculate with this just like that. Why? So if I apply a filter, so I'm going to put the whole up right here and apply a filter. And I'm going to search for the letter B. And you can see here. So what we see here is billions, 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 but it's denoted as B. These are not seen as numbers by Excel. In case you want to just test it, you can say this multiplied by this or plus this, and you will notice what Excel is going to give you. It's an error figure. Same thing applies when you try it on K, M, and T. Those also denote thousands, millions, and trillions. So what do you need to do? You need to convert these to numbers. But are you going to be going through every entry every time to look for BK and BKMT? No. So to do that, I devised myself a quick formula. I don't want to waste much time rewriting or doing through it. So you can pause the video and copy through this formula. I will put them in the comment section below. Now, this formula is that the first thing is, it's going to look at the right. You can see it's highlighting the E2, which is the actual for this very first news. It's going to highlight that and look at the right of it. So it's going to be looking at the very right figure. In this case, the very right character here is a percentage sign, which Excel understands. So in the case of something like B, which is right here, it is going to be looking at that letter and checking out if it is a K. If it finds K, it is going to multiply, it is going to remove the k from that number and multiply the actual numbers there by 1000. Now, if it doesn't find k, it is going to look again. If the letter is m, if it is m, it will remove the m and then multiply that number by 1,000,000. If it is b, it is going to do the same thing, but this time by 1,000,000,000. And if it's t, it is going to multiply by 1,000,000,000,000. I don't think there's anything beyond the t on their platform yet. I have not seen anyone. Now, that way, it turns that number into a number. Now, if it doesn't see MTB or K, it is simply going to return the number the way it is, whether it's a percentage or a number. Again, Excel understands percentages. It is going to do the same thing. Now, it's going to do that for all three of them. What I just simply do is when I put the formula in the very first one, I simply drag sideways like this. So you drag it sideways and you see it will apply itself and also relatively change to fit E, F, and G. That way you have all of that focused and seen easily. So with that by the wayside, you have found yourself actual, forecast, and previous as proper numbers. The next thing we need to do is to determine the difference from actual to forecast or actual and previous. Now, why do I say actual and previous or actual and forecast? Like I said, there are some news that we do not forecast, or rather that analysts do not forecast for. Hence, your calculation for such news is directly the previous away from the actual, which is the current actual release minus the previous release. To account for that, you need conditional statements. Conditional statements is simply if. Now, if you try to apply that conditional statement using the formula part of the work, you notice that blank spaces are noted as zeros. And if you try to do that here, it is going to be looking at this zero as a proper number and negating from 0. Hence, what you do is this. You can apply a conditional formatting the way I did. It is going to be looking at the very original column of forecast. And it's going to be checking if it is blank. Now, if it sees that that number is blank, like in this case, where we see the number is blank, what will happen is that the formula it will use will be different. Now, if that space, which is this space right here, is blank, I'm going to zoom in so we see it. This space is blank, meaning the forecast is blank. It's going to take the actual and take it out from the previous. So it's going to be actual minus previous, which you can see here is the formula that says actual minus previous. Now, if it is not blank, meaning that the number there was a number that existed and it was converted to proper numbers. Whatever was there was converted to proper numbers. Like in this case down here on line 15, what you will notice is it is no longer going to do actual minus previous. It will now go with actual minus forecast. Now, you may be wondering why my Excel is able to write this as actual, forecast, previous in that manner. It's simply because I am using a table format. So I converted everything here into a table. To do that, you just simply, let me go straight to this workbook. You simply click on format as table and you choose the type of table. Personally, I like plain tables. Make sure it highlights the entire book, like from everything that has an entry. And you state my table has headers, because you actually do have headers here, actual, forecast, and previous. And you say, okay. So that way it works as a table. Now, let's apply the logic we just found there, right? Let's apply that logic. By the time the good thing with using a table is when you enter details like this on the table, let me show you what I mean. Let me copy all of this and I enter a detail. If I enter a detail right after the stop point of the table, it automatically adds that into the table. You can see instantly it added it to tables. Now I'm simply going to put that formula for the actual, just like I told you. I'm going to take that formula and I'm going to put it right into this actual page right here. So in this case, because it's A1 to A1, I'm just going to put it right here. And you can see it's highlighting the right cell and I press enter. You can see it instantly applies the formula by itself all through the sheet. If I do the same thing and drag it all the way to the end, It won't apply it yet. It won't apply it yet. However, to quickly make it apply it, you simply highlight both of them and you double click on the edge and you see it drops down. Now let's work for the difference. I'm going to put up the difference right here. So this is the difference. I'm going to take the formula. I hope you've paused your screen and collected the formula, but I'm also going to, put them in the video description below. And I'm going to put the formula right here. You can see that there's nothing here in the first place. But the moment I put that formula into the cell and press enter, it automatically runs that calculation all through to the bottom of the screen, which is really good for us. Now this, my dear friends, is the difference. This is the difference as needed. And here we have all the way to the difference. After this point, all you do is reference. You're doing references. What is referencing? Well, remember the very first sheet we created, the news page. This is where it comes to play. The actual against the forecast tells us greater than is bullish or less than is bullish, right? This is where we start to apply that logic. What the logic simply is we're doing a lookup, a reference. And if I come to this workbook and I come here, I would like to just show you the formula. The formula is quite different and long. This is the formula. So the formula is this. Now, this is a sentiment page, just so you can see the sentiment of each specific news instantly. If you take a look at this formula, the formula says, if difference X lookup, I know it's kind of complex. So let's start from the very simple part of it. So if the difference is greater than 0, meaning if this difference is beyond 0, meaning it is greater than, meaning what does it mean? Actual minus forecast is what difference is, right? So if the actual is bigger than the forecast, that's basically what we're trying to say here. If actual is bigger than the forecast, it will look for this event. Now, this is where, surprisingly, you ought to have this page before the sentiment. I personally just took it to the end because it's kind of distracting here for me. So for you to do this, you actually need this first. Let's now talk about getting this. To get this, you already have the news here. Now, there was something I forgot to mention on video 1 is this. So the way the news comes, it comes with some wordings that you do not need. For example, look at this news. It's written as commodity prices year over year, December. You do not need anything that has to do with brackets here. You do not need all of this. So instead of you manually going through the stress of doing all of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you another page which was supposed to come in later, but we're going to use it as a straight up video here. We're going to go to the filter page. Personally, I don't like to repeat work. Personally, if it's something that is repeatable, then it can be automated. If it can be automated, why the hell should I be doing it over and over again? So what I did was, I first and foremost collected every single news already the way it was. It was a lot more than that. And then I collected it alongside the economy that uses that particular news. For a reason which you'll see soon. But when you collect that news, what you simply do next is this. You apply this formula called text before and if error. So text before the very first space and open bracket. There's always the very first open bracket is usually month or month, year or year. Nothing else before you start to see December and the rest. So there's always that bracket, either before the month or month or straight before the December name, as you can see right here. Hence, I told it if it sees that space, then that space and bracket together, it simply discards everything before that, everything after that place and gives me the letter itself. Now, if it doesn't see a bracket and space, it just returns what is written there, as you can see right here. For example, this CFTC AUD speculative net positioning doesn't have month to month, year or year, quarter over quarter. It doesn't have December, January, any month label. So it pulls out that information. This, don't worry, is going to be used for a later situation. So this is how you can get yourself the news. individually without all this distraction of dates or months or year over year and the rest. Now, another thing you will notice is a lot of these news are repetitive. For example, you can see commodity price is appearing twice. Some other ones appears a lot. So what you simply do is on the new line, you write unique and then you highlight the entire row. So this, what it does is if it sees this name commodity price once and collects it, if it sees it again, it's going to ignore and move on to the next. So even if it sees it at the bottom of the Excel sheet or column, it would not consider it anymore because it has seen it at least once. And what you realize is from Australian dollar, out of over 348 news entries we only have a total of 43 news constantly repeated over time. So these are the news that are repeated over time, over and over again. When a new one finally comes in, it will automatically appear here. It will automatically appear here. So this is how you can get yourself the news without duplicating it too many times. Now, you can do it for all of them. This is how I got all of them personally. I went through each and every currency one after the other, collected it, and had it. Now, the smartest way you can do this is to use this if error formula right into the sheet. So right on this place, you're going to go through it like this. So before you get to the sentiment, you need to apply this formula. You're going to say if error, right? This is to get the news name filter, as you can see. If error, right? It's going to look for event and then do all of this. Now, mine is going to return an error value because I did not name the heading here as event. So I'm going to go ahead and name it as event first. Then I'll come back and reapply that formula. You can see now that it instantly works perfectly fine. So that way you can be getting the names without having the bracketed situation. Like this quarter, you can see here, you can see that there's no more quarter down here. All right, so the reason we're doing all of this is simply because we want to be able to relate this information to the news page. Remember, the news page is written without all this shenanigan. Take note, it's written without all this month, day, year, shenanigan stuff. It is written simple manners. Now, to relate this here, the reason why you need to relate this here is so that you can get the sentiment of what happened. Right off the bat here, you can see that it is good or bad, but you can't tell whether it is bullish or bearish, right? To tell whether it's a bullish or bearish sentiment for that particular news, you need to perform a lookup formula. All you simply do here is you're going to just say, I'm going to take this name. I prefer the names like properly entered. So you're just going to do a lookup formula, which is, you can see right here, sentiment. The formula is, so the formula now is looking at the scenario. If the actual was greater than the forecast, then it is going to be referencing this actual greater than forecast. If the actual is less than the forecast, as you can see, meaning the difference is less than 0, it is going to be referencing this other line of situation. Now, if both of them are not true, meaning it is not greater, it is not less than, meaning it is equal to 0, then it simply just tells me neutral. That is what this entire formula is all about, basically and simple. Now, normalization, right? The normalized data. This is one of the most asked questions. What is this meant for? Well, about 8 months ago, I created the very first dashboard, and the very first dashboard was absolutely totally different. The very first dashboard I created was completely only for high impact news. The normalization then was meant to tell me to what degree is the difference between the actual to forecast and the actual to the forecast to previous. Meaning, if we expected a 10% growth and we ended up getting a 20% growth, what is the actual growth the economy experienced is actually 20%. And what was the expected growth? 10%. So we are not just 10%, we're not just away from what we expected. We are well away from what we expected. So it was more like trying to get the degree to how much bullish or how much bearish each news was. In this case, for this particular dashboard, it is absolutely not useful because it doesn't do anything whatsoever. So this is not needed. Now the type, the same way, this one, unlike the very first one, it doesn't need any extra calculation. You're just referencing that, okay, so look for this event name here, look for this event name in this list and tell me the type of news it is. I just want to know the type of news denoted by the site. So as I'm looking at the particular news event, I'm looking at both the sentiment and the type of news it is. Same thing with the indicator rank. I'm just going to pull out the indicator rank by, okay, look for this specific news event again. Now, the news event filtered against the news page and then tell me the indicator rank. Now, not the type rank, not the events rank, the indicator rank, right? It gives me the indicator rank and I get to see the rank. Now, points. So if a news is bullish, it's supposed to strengthen the economy, meaning you're supposed to be buying such thing. And if a news is bearish, it means you're supposed to be shorting such an asset or a currency in this case. So it means if it is bullish, the rank is a point, it's caused that rank. If it is bearish, it lost that rank it was supposed to get. So what I did was I simply said, it is going to change the word bearish to bullish to 1, which is positive 1. It's going to take neutral as 0, meaning there was no change. And it's going to take bearish as negative 1, meaning minus that point. Now, it will multiply these changes, right? It will multiply that change by the type, the indicator rank it sees here. So in that case, remember, indicator rank is already the impact news, the impact of the news multiplied by the type rank of the news, meaning the impact of the news, a high impact news that's under the leading situation is a high impact, is a high value news. It is going to take that and then give us the necessary points. So if it is, for example, a high impact news, which is 3, and on the leading indicator, it is 2, it is going to give you 6 points. If it loses that news, it is going to lose 6 points. So that's what the point is all about. And you can see, right, just like that, we have finished everything that has to do with the news data input page and the filter page alongside. So these two pages work hand in hand, needs to be created together, and they are very simple. So in the next video, we'll be talking about the individual currency page. Now, all we need to talk about is one page, and then you duplicate it, and all you just need to change, surprisingly, is the name at the top, and then some little bits of insert rows just to meet up with the other informations in between. And that will be all for this video. See you all in the next one. Peace.